Good morning. We are starting the second class on the wasteland. We had our first class on the wasteland, and in that class, I discussed the style and content of the wasteland in brief. I want to recap some of the major aspects that I discussed in the previous class. I said that the style T.S. Eliot maintained in the wasteland it is basically he maintained stream of consciousness technique, and he also divided the poem into five parts, and probably he did it intentionally to give a kind of message to the readers that life is not something absolute, and that is why life is fragmented, and life is incomplete, inconsistent, and that's why the style of the wasteland, I mean the poem being divided into five parts, also gives an idea to the readers that since life is also incomplete or life is not absolute, that in the similarly the poem is not a complete whole. That's why it has been divided into five parts. And these five parts, that there is a silent speaker, Tiresias, I said in the previous class, and Tiresias, a blind prophet who could see the future, who could foretell the future, and who could see almost everything. So there is an observer in this poem who observes everything silently. And the observer doesn't have any role to play. The observer only observes, and the observer only makes some comments, as we see in the play Oedipus, that which Tiresias did over there. But this Tiresias is to some extent different because, over here we see that Tiresias is a man, sorry, is an individual of unisex. That means possesses both female and male sex together. So, I mean, Tiresias is observer, and he observes everything. And the question is, what does he observe? He observes the degenerated state of modern civilization. He observes the sterility of modern civilization, the hollowness of modern civilization. And what we studied in the proof work, we studied the problem of modern man. We basically explored the crisis of modern man. I mean, proof work, and proof work, I said at that time, is a representative of modern man. But in the wasteland, we see a kind of sterility that pervades the whole, at least the European civilization or the Western civilization. And the civilization is completely degenerated. So the theme of the poem is the degeneration of modern civilization, I mean the Western civilization. And in order to make a kind of, synchronization, T.S. Eliot has used style which conforms to the content of the poem. The content of the poem, there are different types of episodes in this poem, and the episodes are taken from different strata or different spheres of life. Some of the episodes have been taken from upper class society, some of the episodes from middle class, and some from lower middle class and lower class society. And the philosophy of both Western and Eastern philosophy have been mingled in this poem, and that is why the style of this poem also has been maintained in a different way by T.S. Eliot to make a kind of synchronization, as I said earlier, between the theme and the style of this poem. We are in the first section of the poem, the burial of the dead. And I said in the previous class that there are two types of lives and two types of deaths. Two types of lives, that means physical life and spiritual life, and two types of deaths, which mean either physical death or spiritual death. Now remember one thing, a person can die physically, but he can still survive spiritually, because if after his death he is remembered by people, I mean, according to this poem, according to T.S. Eliot's philosophy and his belief, he thinks that there is spiritual regeneration, there is spiritual life. So after the physical life, there is spiritual life, and after physical death, there is a chance, there is a possibility of spiritual life. So there are two types of life, I repeat again. One is physical life and the other is spiritual life. And two types of deaths, one is physical death and the other is spiritual death. What is physical death? We all know. What is spiritual death? When a person is physically alive but he doesn't have any morality, he doesn't have any religious belief according to T.S. Eliot, then that person is morally dead, spiritually dead. So a person can be dead even if he is alive, even if he survives physically, he can be dead, he can be spiritually dead. On the other hand, a person can can live. A person can be immortal even after his physical death. He can have spiritual life because of his contribution, because of his belief, because of his morality, because of his religious devotion. And that is basically the theme of the Westland. There is another theme of the Westland, that the past, present, and future have been mingled in this poem. There are plenty of references from the past. T.S. Eliot uses plenty of allusions from different sources, I am telling you again and again. And the sources, I mean, the allusions have been taken from Bible, from Shakespeare's plays, from myths, Greek myths, from Egyptian myths, from Eastern, I mean Indian myths. So it's a poem which is replete with references, allusions from different sources, from different spheres. So whenever I said in the previous class that whenever we read the poem, we have to be very careful about the allusions, because those allusions give us ideas about different, about the lifestyle of Western civilization. Now look at the lines. What are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish, son of man? You cannot say or gaze, for you know only a heap of broken images, where the sun beats and the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief. Now, when we read these lines, be careful about one thing. Son of man. So this is basically taken from Eschyle uh, speech, and Eschyle, I mean, in the book Eschyle of Hebrew Bible, that God says to Eschyle that when Eschyle says that whether the bones are alive or dead, and God asks Eschyle that what does he think about the bones? Are the bones alive or dead? You know, then Eschyle says, God, you know whether the bones are dead or whether the bones are alive. And what does God say to Eschyle? God says, Son of man, you cannot say or gaze, for you know only a heap of broken images. God says to Eschyle that human beings don't have any idea about complete life. Human beings don't know life clearly. So that's a message from God to human beings. And human beings' knowledge is fragmented knowledge, a heap of broken images. So our knowledge is fragmented knowledge. So through this biblical allusion, Eliot makes us understand, wants to make his readers understand that human beings in this world, they basically have fragmented knowledge. Their knowledge is not complete. Their knowledge is not absolute, and that is exactly conveyed through this allusion that Eliot has used from Hebrew Bible, where the sun beats and the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief. So the situation of the world is so that it's completely sterile. It's not a fertile world. It's a sterile world, and there is no relief. There is no chance of optimism in this world. And the dry stone, I have already said, and the dry stone, no sound of water, only there is shadow under this red rock. So there is again the indication of red rock. You can say it indicates Holy Grail. So again, you see Eliot's devotion towards Christianity. You can say it's Holy Grail. You can also think about the church. So whatever you think, it indicates Christianity. Whenever I will say about religion in this poem, remember that I will be talking about Christianity. And there is shadow under this rock. So even if you accept this reference as a Holy Grail, no problem. Even if you accept this reference as church, no problem. So what does it indicate? Indicates come in under the shadow of this red rock. So come under the shadow of religion. I mean, come under the shadow of Christianity. So there is only relief in the under the shadow of church. That means there is only relief in the religious life. There is no relief anywhere except religious life. I said earlier that Eliot was a very religious person. He was a very religious man, and that's why you will see that he was a devoted Christian, and his Christianity, or his belief in Christianity, is also conveyed through different characters in this poem. And here we see that if the people come under this red rock, that means under the umbrella of religion, then they will have some relief. And I will show you something different from either your shadow at morning striding behind you, or your shadow at evening rising to meet you. So what happens in the morning, and what happens in the afternoon? In the morning, a person is, chased by the shadow, and in the afternoon, the man himself chases the shadow. A man starts his life. When a man starts his life, he is basically guided or governed by different desires, different aspirations. And when he is towards the end of his life, and he then starts thinking about the next world. So if you come to the world of, if you come to the path of Christianity, I mean, according to Eliot, if somebody comes to the, I mean, he is talking about, he is asking the Christian people. That's why I said earlier that whenever I will be talking about religion, I will be talking about Christianity, because Eliot was a Christian. Naturally, he will be discussing Christianity in this poem. So Eliot is again, he is giving the indication that when a person starts his life and when a person ends his life, that at the beginning of his life, a person is chased by different desires, and at the end of his life, all the desires either they are fulfilled or they remain unfulfilled. But new desires are there, the desires to have a spiritual life, if the person believes in religion. And then says, I will show you fear in a handful of dust. All these things, God tells, God gives a kind of, order, and God gives a kind of warning to human beings that the ultimate result of human beings is to turn into dust. The human beings will be transformed into dust. So if the people, they spend their life devoid of religious belief, devoid of religion, then they will be degenerated. They will be damned in hell. So as I said, that T.S. Eliot, since he's a very religious person, he is warning the people through this allusion that if the people do not come to the path of religion, then they will lead a completely degenerated life, and they will die spiritually. They will not have spiritual regeneration. Now let's go to here. This is you will see, you will notice one thing, that Eliot will use this language. I mean, other than English language, he will use language and this sort of language, and we are not going to read it, but I will just tell you what does it indicate. Over here, Eliot uses reference, again, allusion. This is the problem of the Westland, that you will have again and again allusions. This allusion refers to an episode of Tristan and Isolde. Tristan he was Tristan was trying to have Isolde from Ireland. Isolde was the girl, and Tristan was man. He was a man, and he wanted to bring Isolde from Ireland for his uncle, the king of Cornwall. And what happens that when Tristan went to Ireland to bring Isolde for his uncle, and then what happened that during their return journey, Isolde herself fell in love with Tristan. And this love continued even after the marriage between Cornwall and Isolde. So from one point of view, you can think that this was an illicit type of love affair, because Isolde and and Tristan, they continued their love even after marriage of Isolde with the King of Cornwall. But from there are different versions of this story, of this episode. But there is one more thing, that uh, when they were returning from Ireland, then what happened, that a kind of medicine which was given to Isolde by one person, Isolde by mistake, there is one version that by mistake Isolde made Tristan to have that medicine, and after that Tristan fell in love with Isolde, and that is why this love continued for forever. This is basically a kind of magic medicine, like the one, if you read William Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. In that play, there is one kind of this type of medicine, that if someone has that medicine, takes that medicine, he or she will fall in love with another person. So when Tristan and Isolde were returning from Ireland, Tristan had this medicine and he fell in love, and this love continued forever. But why does T.S. Eliot use this episode in this poem? The reason is, T.S. Eliot frequently, he will use myth, he will use different stories, different episodes, in order to draw a kind of comparison and contrast between love affair of the past and the present. In most cases, what you will see, that T.S. Eliot glorified love, not only of the past, but he glorified the virtue, the real love, the spiritual love, and he criticized the physical love. So if you look at the love affair between Tristan and Isolde from spiritual point of view, then it's okay. But if you look at it from physical point of view, then it's not fair. Now, what we see, that in the past, the love between or the love was pure, the love was spiritual. But at present, what we see, that kind of love, we see that at present it has completely turned into physical love. Love in the past was spiritual love. Not in all cases, but in many cases. Eliot, I am telling you repeatedly, Eliot is drawing a kind of contrast between spiritual love and physical love. So over here, you will also see the love affair between Tristan and Isolde. There was a kind of illicit, love between Tristan and Isolde, because even after the marriage of Isolde, the love continued between them. So you can look at it from that point of view, that it was an illicit love affair. So this sort of illicit love affair still continues. So does Eliot like this type of illicit love affair? Not at all. Eliot doesn't like illicit love affair. Eliot likes pure spiritual love affair, not physical love affair. And what happens? This story continues. You gave me hyacinths first a year ago. The girl is telling that you gave me hyacinth flower. This hyacinth, you can think, that medicine I was talking about. So you gave me hyacinth first a year ago. They called me a hyacinth girl. Yet when we came back late from the hyacinth garden, your arms full and your hair wet, I could not speak. My eyes failed. I was neither living nor dead. And I knew nothing looking into the heart of light, the silence. In this stanza, what Eliot describes physical love. And look, hyacinth over here symbolizes physical love. This plant or flower, you can say, it symbolizes physical love. The girl, the boy, they become involved in physical love. And that is why, since they are absorbed in physical love, they are basically dead, living or nor dead. I was neither living nor dead. So the person, the individual, cannot realize whether the person was alive or dead. When does a person think so? When does a person comprehend so? When a person is in a death in life situation. Death in life means you are alive, but your spirit is dead. Then we call it death in life situation. So the person, when the person gets involved in physical love, this physical love is hardly distinguishable from animal love. T.S. Eliot discouraged physical love and physical pleasures in such a way that he almost considered it animal love. And that's why the person who gets involved in physical love, according to Eliot, cannot understand whether the person is alive or dead. That is the situation of the physical lovers. Now, what I'm trying to tell you, that Eliot is criticizing here physical love, and he is telling that physical love cannot make you full of spirit, cannot give you life. So, if people are only involved in physical love, they will not be able to enjoy a spiritual flavor of life. Now, let's go to the next stanza. Madame Sosostris. Now we are coming to the main part of the poem. Famous clairvoyante, I mean fortune teller, Madame Sosostris. This reference is taken from Pharaoh tradition of Egypt. Madame Sosostris, according to Pharaoh tradition of Egypt, she was a woman who was a fortune teller. Fortune teller means who could tell the fortune. Now, what was the function or what was the tradition of Egypt? The tradition of Egypt was that Madame Sosostris, in the past, she used to foretell the future, but this was positive at that time. Why it was positive? Because this kind of fortune telling was very significant and fruitful and effective, because this fortune telling was related to the prediction of the rise of the water of the Nile. That means this sort of fortune teller, they used to foretell whether there would be tide or ebb in the river. I am repeating, they would predict the water level of the river the Nile, and according to their prediction, the farmers would plant, and the farmers would plant crops. So this prediction was related to the cultivation and survival of human beings. So this sort of prediction was very important in the past in Egypt. So people like or persons like Madame Sosostris was always considered as someone special in that society. But what happens that the character of fortune tellers has completely been transformed. Those fortune tellers, even if they survive today, they have become completely commercial. Sometimes you will see some people sitting on the footpath in different cities of Bangladesh with parrots and a stick in their hand and with many envelopes in front of them, and they try to predict your and my future. But this fortune telling which we observe in today's world is completely sacrilegious. It is against religion, it is against Christianity, because fortune telling is not permitted in any religion. So what Eliot wants to mean, that the good fortune telling or the positive fortune telling of the past has been transformed into sacrilegious fortune telling at present. And what is Madame Sosostris doing? And you will remember one thing, that Madame Sosostris is over here with many cards. She tells the fortune with using cards. Had a bad cold, she was sick to some extent, nevertheless, is known to be the wisest woman in Europe. She was considered to be the wisest woman in Europe. With a wicked pack of cards, she has packet of cards, and she carries it and she uses those cards to predict future. Here, said she, is your card. Now, since she is a fortune teller, she is drawing the card one after another. The drowned Phoenician sailor. So the kind of cards she will draw over here and she will show are the characters of the wasteland. The characters you will now see in the cards of Madame Sosostris are the characters of this poem you will come across one after another. I am repeating. The cards that Madame Sosostris will draw one after another, they will carry some figures. And these figures are the characters of the wasteland. And you will see these characters one after another when we will progress in this poem. The first card shows drowned Phoenician sailor. So, in the first card, she shows the portrait of a Phoenician sailor, and you will see this sailor later. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Look, it's very interesting that this is again an allusion to Shakespeare's The Tempest, when Ferdinand was crying alone on the seashore because he thought that his father drowned in the sea. But his father didn't drown, and he was just in a bad situation. But gradually, later, he will get his father. But at present, he was without his father, and he thought that his father must have drowned in the sea. But after some time, he saw his father alive, and he saw that his father was looking fresher than before. So that allusion has been used over here for two reasons. Number one, water symbolizes two things. Firstly, water can be a symbol of destruction, and secondly, water can be a symbol of purification. Water has been used as a symbol of purification in many religions in the world, basically the major religions in the world. And water as a symbol of purification, we also refresh ourselves taking bath. So water also refreshes human beings. Water also makes us fresh, and water is a symbol of purity. Water is a symbol of sanctity. So after after some time, Ferdinand observes that his father is looking fresh. So this sailor, I mean Phoenician sailor, is a character of the wasteland, and you will come across this character in the wasteland afterwards. This is the first card. So remember one thing, that we will see a Phoenician sailor in our poem later. This is the introduction. We will see the description afterwards. Now the second character is Belladonna, the lady of the rocks, the lady of situation. Now Belladonna, a beautiful lady, the lady of the rocks or the lady of situations, beautiful lady, and she refers to the aristocratic type of lady of the modern civilization. But it is also an ironical reference to a painting of Mother Mary by Leonardo da Vinci. So this ironical reference to that painting again draws a contrast between spirituality and our physical existence. Now the spiritual, I mean Mother Mary, has been also referred to here as in an ironical manner. But Belladonna, in this particular poem, we will see that she is a lady of upper class society, and through Belladonna, we will see the kind of love basically that exists in the upper class society. So we have already noticed two characters. One is the Phoenician sailor, and the other is Belladonna. And I have said Phoenician sailor, a commercial person, we will see afterwards in this poem. And the second character is Belladonna, an aristocratic lady. We will also see her gradually. Here is the man with three steps, and here the wheel. And here is one-eyed merchant, and the card which is blank is something he carries on his back, which I am forbidden to see. Here's the man with three steps. I do not, sorry, I am again reading. I do not find the hanged man fear death by water. I see crowds of people walking round in a ring. Thank you if you see dear Mrs. Equitum. Tell her I bring the horoscope myself. One must be careful these days. Here is the man with three steps. It can be a reference to Fisher King, and it can also be a reference to Jesus Christ as well. So we can gaze that Jesus Christ, I mean the reference of Fisher King will be there in this poem, and Jesus Christ will be obviously all the time present in this poem. And here the wheel, it also refers to Gautam Buddha again in this poem. So you will also see the presence of Gautam Buddha and in this poem, and his philosophy in this poem. And here is the one-eyed merchant. One-eyed merchant, again, Phoenician sailor, you will see in this poem. And this card is blank, is something he carries on his back. This card may refer to Jesus Christ again, which I am forbidden to see. I do not find the hanged man. This hanged man may refer to Fisher King. Who is Fisher King? Fisher King was a king, who was in charge of the Holy Grail as well. So Fisher King in vegetation myth was a person who was injured, who was wounded, and he used to fish near in the lake near his castle, and his land became sterile, his land became barren when he was injured. So I am repeating again that in the previous stanza we got two characters, the Phoenician sailor and Belladonna. Over here we see a man with three staves. It may refer to, I said, Fisher King or Jesus Christ. And here the wheel, Gautam Buddha. And here is the one-eyed merchant, again Phoenician sailor or one-eyed merchant refers to the commercial people of the Westland. And this card is blank. We also see another blank card, and we see that someone carries something on the back. We can also gauge that it can be a reference to Jesus Christ, who carried the burden of sins of all human beings, which I am forbidden to see. I do not find the hanged man. This hanged man can again be a reference to Fisher King or Jesus Christ, fear death by water, and she thinks that the man might have drowned by water. I see crowds of people walking around in a ring. Thank you if you see, dear Mrs. Equaton. Uh, I mean, Madame Sosostris, after making predictions and after showing her cards to us, she wants to quit. And when she quits, she tells all these things. Now, dear students, this is a long poem and you have to keep patience. I will tell you things repeatedly one after another, but this is such a poem which requires your intensive study as well. It's not possible for me alone to make you understand this poem because there are hundreds of allusions, there are hundreds of references. So it's my earnest request to you that whatever I discussed in this class and in the previous class, I know it will be difficult for you to watch these classes over and again, but I will tell you that you have to understand the Westland, because once you understand T.S. Eliot, once you understand Prufrock and the Westland, it will be much easier for you to understand other modern texts, whether those texts are about the texts, maybe novel, maybe drama, or maybe poetry. So we are still in the first section of the poem, and I'm not completing the first section even in today's class. I will complete this first section in my next class, and I will be repeating some of the major things what I discussed today. But I will ask you to search net and to see this class, to observe my class. And what you will search on net, you will search the story of Tristan and Isolde. I discussed it, but if you read it again on net, it will be clearer to you. And again, you will see in different reference books the cards that Madame Sosostris she showed. So read these things, read the references of Hyacinth Girl, and read the references of Fisher King. I said that Fisher King was the king who was also in charge of the Holy Grail. He was wounded, and when he was wounded, his land also became waste. His land became barren, like Thebes when Oedipus. You have read Oedipus, and Oedipus's land also had become barren. Similarly, Fisher King's land also became barren with his injury. And these myths have been repeatedly used in this poem. And I will request you to read these things and to gather ideas about these references. And I will start from here in my next class. And till my next class, I want to tell you to stay safe. And I know it's a difficult poem, but I hope that you will be staying with me, because there is no alternative except understanding this poem. So thank you very much for today's class, and stay safe. Thank you.